Welcome to Alchemy. I am Sheeana Leigh, and here we explore the art of transmutation, turning shadow into sovereignty, desire into devotion, and the body into home. If you're ready for real conversations about embodiment, sexuality, power, and relational truth, you're in the right place. Now, today we're going to go deeper into bridging the sacred and profane, the art of intimacy and eroticism, and really delving into liberation, not only sexual liberation, but liberating shame in its totality. And I have a very special guest here today that I'm really, really excited to introduce you to because she's going to be one of my most unique guests in this space with her profession, her work, and her calling. And as you know, I like to introduce you all into how we connected and what our relationship is. And so, me and Sierra worked at the Bali retreat that I did last year at the Erotic Embodied, is it the Embodied Erotic Leaders Retreat in Bali, whatever it was called, Embodied Eros? It's a long fucking title. Oh my God. But that is where we met. I spoke about that on the pod. And we were both in this place. And when I first seen and met Sierra, I was a little bit activated by her. I'm not going to lie. And that's usually the case when you're around like powerful women. Like your nervous system gets a little bit activated and you're like, oh, like, I don't know, like there's something edgy here. And it was so classic because when I asked her, what she did, she basically answered me. She's like, I'm a whore. And it was so funny. And we laughed. And I just was like, okay, she is funny. And then I got to know her deeper. And it was like this behind this like funny, silly goose, energetic quality of her. She is actually profound and powerful and deep and poetic and sensual and erotic and sensitive. And I was like, straight away, I was like, that's my girl. That's my type of woman. Somebody that can hold the complexities of the full raw human expression. And I'm going to hand it over to you now to actually introduce everyone into like your calling, what you do, what you're here to do, and your line of work, if you'd like, babe.
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much. I just wanted to make a quick note that your video is pretty blotchy, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, my Wi-Fi is slow. We've got a lot of rain, but don't worry, it'll be
Okay,
uploaded perfectly. Thank you for that.
okay, great. I just wanted to say. Anyways, tech glitches. Great.
They're going to be so delicious on camera, I promise.
Amazing. All
Thank
right.
you.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for that intro. And yeah, I really yeah, just taking in your words and feeling them. Yeah, so I am an intimacy initiatrix and intimacy provider. I could also say a sex worker and sexological body worker. So I'm bridging, what I'm really passionate about is bridging the kind of sacred intimacy work with the kind of profane and more raunchy, like adult industry space. So I'm bringing those two worlds together and, yeah, really supporting clients with embodied pleasure, erotic literacy, and yeah, just really supporting the evolution of sexuality, our relationship to sexuality through the work that I'm doing.
Beautiful. And I love it so much. I love what you're doing. It is so unique and so needed. This element of, and I we spoke about this before we actually jumped on the call about like the rise of OnlyFans and the rise of social media sexuality and how everything's like overtly sexual and performance based. And there's this whole other world behind the scenes that is happening, that is bridging that is bringing the like tantric devotion and sacredness back into like sexuality and truly initiating not only men but sexuality and relational energy back, like bringing it back. So I'd love to ask you more about that passion of yours because it's so unique. And I know a lot of women would not have an idea of anyone in the sex worker world or the sex work industry. And so, yeah, I'd love for you to just sort of introduce them to that lifestyle or to that space, what it looks like truly for you as like an embodied woman. And yeah, that's it. I think not too much.
Amazing. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. So for me, I guess I would share a little bit like my journey into this world.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so like I have grown up in kind of like a Buddhist culture and had a lot of like tantric initiations early on through Buddhist lineage and ritual, and then kind of found myself in the adult industry through kind of the temple scene, which would be like kind of like sacred intimacy work and like, yeah, kind of like it was like a, I don't know if your listeners know, but like temple culture and scene is like, a place where we can come and start cultivating a connection to our eros and pleasure. And sometimes it's more of a transpersonal experience where we might be running eros with ourselves and with others, but not necessarily be physically interacting. Maybe there are physical interactions, there's different types of temples, but that was kind of like my initiation into the tantric kind of scene.
Mm-hmm.
And then like kind of just have always had a desire to explore kind of the taboo things. I'm a Scorpio, so
Yeah.
naturally drawn to the taboo, and yeah, had always had a desire to explore like the adult industry. Had like played around with the idea of like stripping when I was in university. Never did that, but yeah, at some point, 4 or 5 years ago, I was like, had met several like sex workers myself, and I was like, these people are epic. I like what they're bringing. I like our connection, and I think I want to do that. So I jumped in, and initially I wouldn't say I was like bringing the full tantric priestess through when I first started engaging in sex work. I was just kind of like fucking around and finding out, like I was like, I'm just gonna like, like do this thing and see what happens, and like, oh, this is kind of cool as a side hustle. And then I started having really powerful experiences with clients. I started connecting more and more to my own initiatrix energy and had a lot of awakenings myself in terms of my erotic blueprint and
Oh,
my
wow.
gift in terms of, yeah, like my erotic expression. And I saw that there was an opportunity here to start bringing that through more and more in service to my clients. And I started getting really amazing feedback like, whoa, that was like, I've never experienced something like that, or like just how connected they felt or how deeply relaxed their nervous systems felt. And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I have something here. Yeah. So I don't know if that answers your question,
Yeah,
but
I think so.
it was kind of like, I
Absolutely.
felt like that was kind of like my journey into finding this work. And then as I kind of had these awakenings and like connected these dot points, I started leaning deeper into this realm of like, I actually want to be a guide here. I want to be in service to erotic awakening.
Yum. There's so many points I want to touch base on because, yeah, I feel like there's a lot of misconception around people in the sex work industry, as we all know, especially now that like OnlyFans is heightened and there is like two different polarizing views. There's like this liberation, like women are going after what they want and, what they're using their body and really getting it. And then there's the other one of like it's dirty or it's like you shouldn't be selling your body because your body is sacred. But I wanted to hit on, like the oldest profession in the world is prostitution. Like it is the courtesan. Like that is one of the oldest professions in the world. And, you know, it's beautiful to sit here with you. And this is what I want to really put in there as well. As somebody, there's this misconception that people that do this work are broken or broke, or there's like they have to. But there's like actually this whole other place and space where it is embodied, it is sort of liberating. And the amount of stories I've heard of feminine, like the women being liberated, like something awakens in their eros and their eroticism when they embody the stripper or the slut or like these sacred archetypes within us that are, consciously tapped into are profound. And then even your share of the story, like it doesn't just awaken something within you that like transfers, like you're sitting there and men need this work. Men need this work. We are dealing with a society of men that are really disconnected from their dick to their heart. It's this there's a complete sort of severance there as well that we don't tap into. And like, how beautiful is it that they can tap into their nervous system, their heart, their erotic body, like through awakening with another woman. And again, it's like the oldest profession in the world. Like, women were priestess, temple initiators. Like, this is the lost art that we don't see in society, even woman to woman, like initiating like through the womb and welcoming them in like to that transmutable power of the womb is fucking sacred. And yeah, like there is like filth and there is like this element of like, fuck yeah, it's sex and it's fucking, but there is also this other side that I don't think spoken about enough. So yeah.
Mm. Yeah, so much here. Yeah,
So much that I want
like
to hit on from your first share.
yeah. Yeah, and like you said, it's the oldest, like it's one of the oldest professions, and not even just professions, but like something that I've been, feeling in when you were talking is that like prostitution, like courtesans, like, you know, intimacy initiatrixes, like these roles in society were fundamental, like they're it's kind of like an ancient and lost but not lost, it's still there, it's just been like gone underground. But like the courtesans, the geishas, like these very like real parts of ancient society and culture, like they were like cultural emblems, they were artistic, like they were holding point for like the arts and like creativity, like sex and eros is creational energy, and it's not just for creating from like childbirth, but it's like creativity coming through, moving through. And so it's when these courtesans were supporting the men in these like civilizations, they were supporting with like creativity, ideas, intellect, like supporting them, like coming back from war to support like the softening and the like healing of trauma, like war trauma. And something that I really focus on in my work is like the artistic element of it.
Yes. It's
I
why I love you.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I really believe that sex is a lost art. We're seeing currently a culture that has a really distorted relationship to sex. Like there's a lot of, I would say like it's a conditioning that's very like there's a very fine small pie sliver of what like sex is now seen as, whereas there's actually so much that's being missed when we're just seeing sex as what we see in kind of mainstream porn.
Yeah.
And it's a lost art. Like there's so much to it, and like any kind of art or skill, it takes practice, like it takes really commitment to, whether it's deconditioning, relearning, reawakening. I really believe and hold like this intention for my clients, like the goodness of their hearts, the goodness of their intention. And I don't like to say like, I'm teaching you because you don't know, but rather I'm being a mirror for you to remember how to be in right relationship with your cock, how to be in right relationship to your body, to your pleasure. It's like I'm just holding the mirror so that you can
Oh,
remember
that
this
hits me.
lost
That
art.
makes me a little bit emotional, like actually like well up because I do. I'm a little emotional, babe.
Yeah.
This this is you just everything you spoke on is just so beautiful. It is an art. Like sex is an art. Like it is a lost in air quotations art. It is a repressed art. And anything that's repressed or suppressed gets contorted and shadowy and murky. And we're seeing that. It just feels so true to be talking about this right at this moment with everything that's being put out into the collective. And we're seeing that distortion and we're seeing what unchecked, like unclaimed power and unclaimed like sexuality and sexual energy is does to people. and the collective as a whole. So this is not even just, this is so much bigger than like sex between person and person. This is so much bigger than, sex as an act and sex as something you do. Like it's actually like a full, like, reclamation of our whole energy, like our soul. Like we cannot have any soul without sex. Like that is truth. And yeah, it just hits me in the feels that you're out here doing this work and it's so deeply looked at through so many layers and lenses that are, yeah, not incongruent with truth, and kind of like this element should be praised and like honored, that we're seeing what men disconnected to their cocks and hearts truly does, and their bodies, like it's sad. And I think that too, as we're seeing this whole, like there's this whole feminine resurgence at the moment, we're starting to see the disconnection from our fellow humans, like as in the gender of men. And we're just kind of like, we're like, fuck you, burn it all down. But it's like the pain and the grief and the disconnection has so deeply impacted them also, you
Mm,
know?
absolutely. Yeah. And that's actually, you just named so clearly like one of my deepest prayers with doing this work. And that's something actually that I didn't mention before, but like my relationship to this work is that I approach it from a very deeply intentional place, and I hold several really strong prayers for the collective, like for the healing, for the evolution of humanity. And one of those is around like this distortion we're seeing between the masculine and the feminine, the resurgence of the feminine, and then this like movement we saw it like a number of years ago with like Me Too, and out of that came like like men, and we deserve better, and all of this like kind of like, yeah, fuck the men kind of vibe. I actually am so not down with that. Like, I'm just like, I can't get behind that. I'm sorry. Like, sure, I've, Me Too, like, sure, but like, I just don't see that as a path forward. That you're allowed to have your rage, you're allowed to have your like anger. Yes, absolutely. And I think when it's undealt with and it then becomes like projected out into this like rageful, like resentful kind of energy, I actually don't think that this is a real path to liberation. When we're speaking about liberation, yeah, I actually think it's like a real shadow that we're getting like stuck in, like this shadowy loop we're getting stuck in. So this prayer is like really that I hold with this work is like actually like for the love of men, like for
Ooh.
the fucking love of men. Like I love men. Like I fucking, like I am so like just in awe and reverence and devotion to like the sacred masculine. Like this energy is a protector energy, right? Like, and it's like, thank you. Like this energy is the seed energy that brought me into this life. Like thank you for this life, thank you for for your protection. And yeah, I really hold that as like one of the prayers is like, I'm doing this for the love of men. And
Edgy.
yeah, for the evolution of humanity and the repair between the masculine and feminine.
Yeah, and I think that that is where we're heading, right? Like there's so many layers of like us against them, me against you, right against left. Like this is like we're just seeing this, and it's becoming like a little hamster wheel that we're all like constantly stuck on and so activated by, like spewing our shit and our unprocessed rage and grief everywhere. And it's like, well, that is not liberation, as you said. That is not how we process and move through huge. Like it doesn't like avoid devoid like everything that's happened, like you said, we process, we grieve, we hold space for. But like true liberation is together and more, like it's not, it's really, and I really wish that humanity and people and the right and the left and the Christians and the fucking whatever, the spiritualists, like whatever the sides are from the different coins that are two opposite poles of the same fucking spectrum would just smush their shit together and realize that this is like the ultimate separation tactic. One, judging, like judgment, like even to sit here with you today, like I'm sure people got on the podcast and had preconceived ideas and expectations and judgments and stories and narratives that they're holding on to of what that looks and like, or you're right or you're wrong. And it's like dissolve all that bullshit, sit in like actual presence and like the actual like heart to heart coherence, and like the let your body soften and open up to like this untapped intelligence and this like pure heart energy. And like all of that shit that we're just like spewing out is just it's not even it, nobody gives a fuck. Like stop putting this on yourself. And like that is the evolution that we're seeing hopefully through all of this. Like it really isn't about I can sit in a space with somebody who's done horrendous things, and I can sit in a space with somebody who has done beautiful powerful things, and all of it truly doesn't matter at the end of the day.
Yeah. Something that I'm thinking about is the lack of initiation and rites of passage spaces that we have. Like we're seeing more of them in the sacred sexuality world or spiritual world these days, but there's a real lack of it in a larger level in modern culture and society right now. And I think that the lack of initiation spaces, both for men and for women, is contributing to a lot of the resent and a lot of the clash that's happening, not just between men and women, like you were speaking about all the different sides of the coin and the different opinions and different, perspectives. But yeah, I think especially like for men and women, it's so important that we have spaces where we can go to process and be held, as women in our rage and our grief, and men also in their rage and their grief. And one way that I like to look at my work as is also as like an initiatory space. And it's a different kind of initiation space because it's not one where, it's men holding space for men, but it's a woman holding space for men. But this is like, when clients arrive at my temple doors, like I really do see it as a space that is a rites of passage or an initiation on some level. Like whether they're consciously fully aware of it or not, that's another story, Like I say often, sell them what they want, but give them what they don't know they want. So it's like I'm selling sex, like I'm selling like a hot ass, but
Yeah, you are.
they're arriving, and then they're receiving like a whole transmission. I depending on how, you know, how open they are, I might bring more kind of transmission into the session or less, but it's still there, even if it's not like, even not if I'm not actively like kind of educating or sharing insights, it's still like through the transmission of our intimate connection that they're receiving
Yeah.
this new blueprint for what connection can be like. It's, like, sure, I can be the fantasy call girl that they want, but if that's all that they're there for, and truly like some of them are like they just need a good shag, and that's fine. But also like, you know these days I tend to get clients that are a lot more inclined for some kind of experience. They're looking for something a little bit deeper. They've like heard about Tantra, or they're looking to work through a challenge that they're having intimately in their lives. And so there's like, they're called to me and my brand because they're like, oh, there's something here that's a little bit different. She's not your typical like fantasy call girl fantasy, like, yeah, so there's something a little bit unique here that draws them, that magnetizes them towards it. And sometimes they're not even fully aware of it, but I really trust that, right? Like I trust that who shows up at the temple is meant to show up at the temple.
And that's so lovely. Like I have a couple of questions as well about this whole and it is an art, this art of weaving, like constantly weaving that sacred and profane, like that Madonna and whore, that, like that cool girl, like slut, and that, sacred priestess. Like it's constantly weaving. And I think that actually speaks, like energy doesn't lie. Like, and energy is felt even if it is not consciously known. So you even like holding that like integrated, embodied, like non-fractal element of your pieces and parts will automatically activate and waken. It's like someone else. And this is that mirror aspect you were speaking on. And this is why we get, and this is funny because this is like, how I kind of introduced you. It's like you were a bit activating when I first met you. And like it's true. Like, and I know I am too. Like it's felt within other people, even if you don't know what's going on. Stuff is like the body intelligence and like the energy body is so profound. Like we haven't even tapped in to the depth of it just yet, like through science and whatnot. And it actually starts to reorganize internally. And you don't even know logically when you're in these spaces, when you're, and so imagine going even deeper into this, into intimacy, into the literal void temple space of transmutation within a woman's body, and feeling that, like that is the closest a man will get to the womb, other than being birthed. And it's such a re-invitation and a re-welcoming back home, back to mom, like back to woman, like her. And I think that that's something that we often forget too. Like this is actually such deep nervous system rewiring for men, and such a deep like element, like physical. We think, oh, they're just physical creatures, but it's so much deeper than that. It goes deeper into the body than that. Like coming home and being with womb, being with her, and being connected to their own hearts and in space, like even if they're not like, it actually has profound effects. Yeah, I really, like it is a deep seated need for them physically. Like that is how they regulate. That is how they feel love. That is how they feel deeper connection. And this is the thing, like we are wired a little bit differently. And it's just like really learning, growing a like capacity to hold a duality and like that polarity, and not just within yourself internally, but within other. It's like they're biologically wired differently. They work differently. And feeling the like sensational stretch in that other aspect, and holding space for that, as in like, yeah, like this man needs, like it's just such a service, delicious, surrendered, like yummy posture that I think again we have like forgotten.
Yeah, so much of the time I get clients who literally just want to cuddle. They want to cuddle and they want to talk.
Beautiful.
They just want company, they want companionship, they want closeness, their nervous systems are longing for that remembrance of being held by the mother. And yes, like I am embodying sometimes that like motherly, like Madonna like archetype of like, yeah, like I can just hold you in this experience,
Yeah.
whatever you need to talk about, like whether it's relationship drama or like work being super hard, or maybe they just want to turn off and forget about that and they just want to be held, they just want to be nurtured, they need nurturance. And the other thing I was thinking about, that like the wiring of the difference between the wiring, the masculine feminine, like men actually like their opening happens bottom up, so like their access to their heart is through their cock. So often like there needs to be an activation here in the sexual organs with their cock, and like some, when that activation happens, then the energy can move up, the heart can open. There might be like, we might share like an erotic moment at the start of the session, and then like suddenly they're like sharing like their deepest like pain with me, and their heart is opening and they're sharing things they've never shared. They're like, I've never told anyone this. And I'm like, ah, like,
Yeah.
ooh, like let me like hold you here and like wow. And, for women, it's like we open from the up down, like our heart,
So
when there's
deep throat
safety and our
more.
nervous systems feel safe and our hearts are open and there's an emotional connection, then our sex centers can open. So
It's
it's like there's
beautiful.
this.
I don't know if you heard what I said then, but I think that's so funny because I'm like, so we need to deep throat more. Like there's this like there's like but it's true, like that voice and like mouth portal, like you were just speaking of, is and like anyway, we'll side note that, but
Absolutely. Yes. So much yum. Love that. Yeah. But there is that real difference between the ways we open and there is an opportunity there to meet in the middle and like meet each other in our differences of the ways that we open and yeah, like receive both of us. There's an opportunity to receive like learnings and a transmission in the way that like we open and we can become empowered in our sexuality and our hearts and open in our sex centers and in our heart center.
yum. Yum, yum, yum. I'm going to start asking you some questions now. I got sidetracked before, but I'm here. I'm ready to ask some deeper questions. So, in terms of sexual liberation, and especially, you work with a lot of men, I'm sure my listeners would love to hear about what you feel is, and you work with women too in different areas and elements, but so please hit us with both. What do you feel is like in your work, is the most beautiful way to move through shame and into like sexual liberation? That's a big question, like a pretty big question.
Just making sure that I got it right. You're asking about like what's the best way to work with shame?
Yeah. So, how do you personally do it with men and even with women if you feel called to share too? Like, how do you get them to, like, yeah, work with their shame, move into that sexual liberation, like more so than like the shame version of, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would work probably differently dependent on like like everyone's so unique and what they're coming with to every session is so unique. So it's going to look different. It's definitely going to look different for men versus women as well. With men, the thing is like there's so much repression around feeling. There's so much repression around feeling and acknowledging like the challenges because they're holding so much. They're the protector energy, the provider energy. They're holding so much in their lives often, and so there's not even space to feel or acknowledge what might be there, like the shame or like the sticky emotions, grief even. So working with it is like it's very nuanced, right? Like I'm sure you know this. It's like when someone is in a shame spiral or like coming with a lot of shame, it's like you have to move so gently, right? Like it's easy to like it would be easy to potentially like increase that shame if you don't move gently. But so with men, it's like, it's quite repressed. They often don't know. They're like, and they may not even be aware that they have that. So I wouldn't be like working with it in a direct way. I wouldn't be like, all right, so I'm noticing you have shame. Let's like put it on the table and like work with it. Like I notice you have shame in paying for sex. Let's address that. Like I'm not going to be like, so, because the reality is like there is shame there for a lot of men, like that they are potentially like, yeah, paying for intimacy and sex or having to turn to a sex worker, having to, like choosing um, to seek the services of a sex worker. So it's more about like loving them how they are, however they show up, and just like holding a really like transpersonal love and like acceptance for like exactly as you are in this moment, and like that being this loving transmission that whether they're conscious or not of it, they're receiving. Now, I do have, I'm a sexological body worker, and I do work in a more therapeutic capacity as well with clients. And that's where I see more women as well as men. And that would be like because the context is a more therapeutic context. There's an intake form, and they're going to be like naming their intentions and, the things that they're wanting to bring into the session and work with. So if there's something around shame that comes up in that, like, then we would work with it in a more direct way, whether that's unpacking it through the body, or doing a de-armoring work potentially, that like it's a bit different when it's in a therapeutic context like that, because they're maybe more aware of it, or they're naming it, or it might have a place to actually come up in the session, versus just in the context of like like a companionship or escorting session.
Yes.
It would be
It
a
is
lot
a different
different.
flavor and it is a different style. Like you said, they sell them what is that saying you just said before? Sell them what
Tell
they
them what they
want.
want,
Yep.
but give them what they need.
Yes. And it's like, well, yeah, you're showing up in this. I love that because it's so true. And this is like, I go into this all the time about like being really attuned to not only your body but the other person's body, and I think that it is an art form, and a subtle nervous system sensational awareness that has we've largely lost in our society from the rise of like porn industry, social media, disconnection, so many levels and layers from body and self. And it is like having this level of like fine attunement. And this is an art. This is something you work on. Like it's not just like you click your fingers and become like an artful lover or an artful, devotional sex worker overnight. It is something that you have to be strongly, and I would have to say from most of my lovers, it is the number one ick in my life. And it is the number one thing that most people cannot touch on. It's like being so finely attuned to like the micro movements and the subtle signals that the body gives off. And not only that, but like sex and intimacy, like you are regulating, like your nervous system, your body is in like this harmony coherence, like running through each other's bodies, that you can feel the other person's body if you're tapped in, if you've tuned into your body and like understand it. And you have to work at this, like, right, like dissolve all your shit, get in tune with your body, like, get out all the muck, like all this sort of stuff. But it is like you are so subtly connected to these like energetic, sexual, like micro body signals. And yeah, like it's something that not many people have, and something that as a sex worker, as a, somebody that is, you need to be able to, and I would like to say, even like working with shame, like you'd have to have like very, not many people can work with shame and grief. Like I feel like those two elements are like deep elementals that in your body you have to be so attuned to, like the nervous system, the micro cues, the oh, I feel something in there. And like, because even me and you now, like we're actually like deeply connected to each other's bodies, and like the shifts and the subtleties, right? Like we're being super intimate right now. Like I even post on my Instagram stories that I had a hot day with you. But it is like this art form, right? And it is something. And do you have any more on that one? Like, because I really feel like this is the art. They come to you for something and they're receiving so much more. And like in my head, and this is just like the visual, so I want you to like share deeper into the how and the why you move through it. But I would say you'd be so connected to your body and like eros and the subtleties of their body and their heart and their cock, or like, even with women, like, yeah, that you actually like subtly move and flow. It becomes like a dance, like, cosmic space and state, where this is how I envision it. So, but please tell us how it got.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, absolutely. Like, there is a lot of embodied intelligence and awareness that I hold. And that's one of the things that, in some of my sessions, like clients are coming in more in the therapeutic style sessions, like clients are coming to build that skill. Right. And so we do sensory mapping and pleasure mapping, and spend a lot of time and move really slowly to build that erotic awareness and intelligence, embodied intelligence, presence, because there's so much like leaving of ourselves. There's, especially for men, There's a lot of conditioning around performing, being really great and like, super masculine and like, pleasing her and yeah, like having to be this like, you know, beefcake that's like, can throw her around, primal beast, and like, what they're seeing in porn is like that conditioning that they're receiving is pretty disconnected, at least in mainstream porn, like pretty disconnected and like not really present. And so like I do a lot of work with some clients around like retraining their nervous systems, retraining their capacity to stay and be present and like with their breath and attuned to the subtle sensations that they're experiencing, because it starts first with themselves, right? When they can be more aware and present with their own bodies, their own sensations, and track the sensations and like, oh, I'm noticing this and it's shifting and it's moving here and there and and it's opening in this way, and then they can be more present with their lovers' bodies. But yeah, it really is a dance, and it's really an art to learn. Really erotic literacy, embodied intelligence, pleasure intelligence, and it takes time.
That is so hot. Can you go deeper into that, my love? Oh, I'm like juiced up. Like my pussy got wet as soon as you started saying that. I was like, oh, all right, go deeper. I want more. Fill me up.
What part? The
The end
embodiment.
part, the literacy and the pleasure and the like. What is that? What even? I know we just spoke about that, but yeah, just going deeper into that.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit more about like
Body literacy is
cultivating
something
that.
I'm super passionate about, like giving that transmission and supporting clients to be more literate, because in pleasure, right? We, first of all, like there's a lot of repression, there's shame, we're not talking about it. Sex education is in the toilet, like people aren't being taught how to talk about their bodies in an empowered way, own their desires, even know what their desire is, consent, like know what their yes is, what their no is, what they like, what they don't like, and getting comfortable with just like speaking about their pleasure, their bodies, their desires, their fantasies, what they, what they're a yes and a yum to, and what they're like a fuck no to. And yeah, like just getting my clients comfortable about like speaking about these things. And it's like there's no shame, like you don't need to feel shameful for wanting to explore this like kinky thing, or or this role play, or this fantasy that you've always wanted to do something like this. And it's like, that's fine, babe, like let's, yeah, like let's talk about it, let's own it, let's like, and learn how to communicate in a way that's attuned and present, and just like really sovereign.
Sovereign. Yes. Sovereign sexuality. I'm down for that. I wanted to just like highlight in that, this is where we see that split, right? Like, this is where we see that, like that erotic split. And it actually, I believe that any sort of shame like really imprints on our soul, because especially sexual shame, because we are sexual essence in creation, in motion, like in expression. So any of that really sort of like imprints. And I mean, you can't imprint a soul like per se, like we're absolutely like pure and innocent and divine no matter what. But there is this element of like stickiness that doesn't actually let you evolve to your full expression, right? It keeps you kind of small. And I love how moving into like your pleasure, your desire, making it revolutionary, making it normal. Like normal is a revolution, right? So we make it this such abstract external thing that it's like actually reclaiming it, bringing it into ourselves and like owning it makes it less like an external, as sex is here and outside and pleasure is out of reach. And this, it's like when we actually move it through our bodies and like sit with it and sit with the sensation and sit with the presence, it's like we become like more yummy humans, like in general, in our whole, like our whole sphere changes, like our whole energy presence changes, our whole, the way, and it doesn't become this like, oh, this is dirty and filthy, and there's so much you can start to see like the many layers and lenses of the greater whole of everything, if that makes sense. Like I don't like I sometimes I speak in like whimsical poetic ways, but it's not like this is dirty and this is wrong and this is bad and this is good and this is pure and holy. It's like when we actually like move around that eroticism of like both and all and none and everything all at once. It's like that's when we move into like that fucking gorgeous cosmic like orgasmic state of being. And I'm not talking about having an orgasm. I'm talking about like the orgasmic state of being alive.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What stood out to me there was like the ownership of like the raunchy, like dirty, like aspects of sex or eroticism. And it's like when we can come into deeper ownership of like the full spectrum of like the pure, holy, like divine moments and the like raunchy, dirty, like filthy fucking moments. There's
Yes.
more like yeah, like there's a embodiment and like a deeper like sovereignty that comes with the ownership of like the full spectrum of our sexuality, you know. And so often, like especially, you know, working in the adult industry as a sex worker, like this, you know, this is kind of like there's a bit more of, especially from my clients, there's this like idea, but like also from probably your listeners as well, like there's this idea that like maybe sex workers are like this kind of like dirty and like it's like this kind of dark, dirty, kind of murky thing. And it's like, oh, you do like kind of questionable things.
I mean,
but
sure,
but
sometimes
it's like,
like
yeah, sure. Yeah, I do. But that's like all part of life. Like, you know, it's like we're full spectrum human beings. And like, it's not just we're not gonna be like these fucking good girl, pure fucking Madonnas all the time. You know, it's like it's part of the full spectrum of being human is like bringing more acceptance to like to the dirty and the raunchy aspects of life.
yes, this makes me so hot. Like talking about this, I get so juiced up because honestly, and this is like something I really try and bring in with a lot of like the full spectrum, right? It's like I actually am so like I have had the most divine like connecting with God, spiritual expansive moments when I've been like the most degraded, filthiest slut of my life. Like, and this, and this is like the split. And I'm sure like it's actually like, it's so powerful to reclaim that. It's so powerful to embody that and let it breathe and give it movement and space and stage, like presence. Because then, you know, and this is the part like these threads are not pulling you like down and into the decrepit darkness of it's like bring them up, let them move, like let them actually have life. And then like they're not pulling your energy down and in, like you're up and out and expressed and wild and free. And I know again that sounds like I spoke about it a couple, I would love to give little real life examples. Like I had this, I used to call it like my little gremlin aspect, where it was like a little sensationally hungry whore, right? Like, so, like, what do you call it when you're actually like a bit of a adrenaline junkie? Like, just wanted to feel the sensational element in my body. Like, I wanted to feel so like alive and raunchy. And when I was not aware of it and just letting it sort of run my life, like that would show up in unhealthy, toxic ways. Like it was actually the pull of that would show up in me, like doing certain things that were, you know, would be bad for my life or like would maybe kill me one day. Like, I don't know, like these really crazy things just to get that sensation, like drag racing a car on a freeway at like 200 Ks, like just random shit that's like probably not the best interest for my life. And then as soon as I moved it into a space of like letting it breathe, brought it into like my eroticism, let it actually have pleasure, let it play out that experience in a scene and stuff like that. Like it's kind of like stopped controlling my life, like stopped pulling me down, stopped pulling me down into the muck. And like it's completely liberated my expression of my body. So it's like these flavors, like, so I really wanted to put on like how this works. Like these things will have control over your life and will control your life and the way you operate and show up in the world until you allow them to move freely and be expressed and normalize them, right? Like I wasn't like, let them actually be seen, witnessed, heard, accepted, explored, like tasted. And it's like, what, like that is when we move into like full sexual liberation, like full life liberation, like full erotic movement. And you're like moving from a juicier space because you don't have this thing like that's down and in. It's like, oof, let it breathe, bitch. Let it breathe.
Mm, yeah.
It's like, it's interesting though, because I find like what we talk about a lot, and I have had this feedback too, is like a lot of people are like, it's something out of reach. It's something like, what are you guys talking about with like eros and pleasure? Because a lot of people are not living the way that we live, like our sort of life and embodiment and style. And like, what does that look like? What do you mean? Like, and so it's really yummy to give like these little threads of like real life examples of like, this is what this means, because it's like, it's something that's not out of reach. It's not external and outside of you. It's reclamation, like right here in the body. And this is how like real life that shows up, which is super interesting. Do you find that in regards to that, and in regards to a lot of people sort of not knowing what you do and how you explain it to people, do you feel like there's a lot of like, yeah, any other sort of like distortion, misconceptions, like other threads of connection that you want to like really land here?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'll say most people know what I do now. It was definitely a journey to come out as a sex worker, but at this point in my life, like everyone, yeah, like I'm pretty open about it. My family knows, all of my friends know, like I have a public like social media presence with the work, and yeah, I've worked through the layers. I've worked through my own layers of shame around it. But yeah, I guess like one of the main, I guess like there's a couple of like perceptions that people will say, like a really common comment will be like, well, they'll be like, is it, like some people will take the angle of like, is it dangerous? Like, are you safe? Like, isn't that dangerous or something? And I'll say that like in my 4+ years of doing this work, there's really only like 1 or 2 times that I actually truly felt scared. And even then, like it was like my radar was going off early and I just, chose to exit the scene early kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's something like with this work, like one of the gifts of this work is that it's enabled me to build high level of attunement and trust and intuition of like, is this where I want to be? Is my medicine going to be received? Am I actually going to be in service to this person? And also boundaries, like clear as day boundaries. Like this work really asks you to build strong boundaries. And then the other comment I'll get a lot is like, oh my God, that's so cool. You must make so much money. I want to do that. And I'm like, let me pop your bubble. Like, actually, you don't make that much money because there's so many expenses that are involved in actually just like running a business, like any business. And you actually have to like build, it's like actually about building a client base, retaining clients. Like, you can't just like, now like the market, there's so many sex workers out there. Like, you can't just like pop a naked photo out and get like, people throwing cash at you left, right, and center anymore. It's like you actually have to build connection with clients. And like, it's, the people that, like, the reason I'm successful is because I have like amazing regular clients who are devoted and committed to working together. And yeah, it's like you gotta hustle. Like, you can't, it's not easy work. You're not like, it's not easy money. Like, that's such a misperception around sex work. Like, it's easy money. You're just like, you're just opening your legs and like you're getting paid. And it's like, no, there's so many aspects to the work. It's like running a business, like fully, like there's so many so many expenses and so many aspects. Like I spend way more time like, you know, building out my brand and having a social media presence and marketing myself than I actually do like face to face with clients, you know?
Yeah. Yes, I do know. Yes, I do know.
So it's like any, you know, it's like any work, like I think there can be a lot of pedestaling of, you know, it can be either like rejection and like projection, or it can be like a pedestaling of the work. And
Mm.
yeah, it's definitely not work for everyone. Like this is definitely not everyone is cut out to be a sex worker. Like it's not fucking easy. So I do not recommend.
If you're listening to this,
If you're listening to this, I do not recommend. I fucking love it, and my soul chose it. Like I really feel like my soul chose this work. Funny like side story about this is that
please.
I ended up in Australia like through a series of like following my heart and being called to a certain like training which had nothing to do with like sex. It was an embodiment training, but not like a sexuality training. And then at some point I found myself like called to move to Byron Bay in the state of New South Wales, and that's when my like awakening around like being a priestess like began. And interestingly enough, and I like call this woo woo whatever you want, but like I really believe my soul called me to New South Wales because New South Wales is the like first state and one of the only states in the world to have decriminalization of sex work. Since 1995, sex work has been decriminalized in New South Wales. So I really believe that like my soul like somehow brought me like, you know, I'm from California, like I had never even thought about Australia. It was like fully off my radar. Like I was just like not even like, oh yeah, I want to go to Australia. Like that wasn't even on my radar, and somehow like in a short amount of time during COVID, my soul called me to come like here and end up in a place where like sex work is decriminalized, and then I have this awakening around my priestess codes and start working as a sex worker. So I'm like, all right, I mean, I don't know what that was, but I believe that there was like there's a thread there that brought me here.
Absolutely. And like the land calls you. Like I say this all the time, the land actually calls you to where you're meant to be. And if you listen to that call, like amazing things happen. You like open yourself up to the land and the land opens itself up to you. And there's this huge like energy portal that happens. So I fucking love that story. I think that's so good. Like of all places. And it's like the bougiest place in Australia too, which I absolutely love. Like you're like, yes, I'm from America. Like, just pop on over, and then there you are in like the. I don't know. It's really cute. I love it. You're so close to me. I should just drive down. We should be doing this in person.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. I'm curious, my love. I feel like this is sort of naturally moving into a more closure. And before we sort of go, I would love to just get you to drop in and just sort of see and like listen to your body and see if there's any like threads of connection that are still open or you want to really touch base on, anything calling you to share at this moment.
Mm. Yeah, I feel like just to bring circle back around to the thread of for the love of men, and just like, yeah, really bring that presence that here and let this podcast and this conversation be a prayer for the love of men and the healing, the awakening, the reconnection from the cock to the heart. And just really presencing that prayer, and may it like ripple out, yeah, to all those that it needs to touch.
That makes me so emotional. Like every time you talk, I sort of well up and overcome with emotion. It's beautiful. What you do is beautiful. It is sacred. It is luscious. It is needed. It is a great calling. I am so like proud of you, and I feel like it's such like I know I'm proud of you, but also like I just think you're such a pleasure and joy in this world, and for you to like answer that calling that a lot of people are scared, like sacred callings, right? Like I truly believe that everyone has a special sacred calling in this earth. And we don't listen to it a lot of the times. And you've like answered the call and stepped up and showed up fully, even though along the way there is a lot of shame, stories, narratives, misconceptions, like so much bullshit that you've like had to like swim through to get here. And like here you are, like anchored, present, divine, like holy, slutty little whore. Like I love it. It's like this is the sacred calling. And it looks so abstract and so weird to so many others, but others that are on this path and know this is absolute truth and are also following and hearing their calling, they're not judging you at all. They're definitely in alignment and hearing that sacred drumbeat as well. So I'd love to hear about, yeah, anything else you wish to share, any words of wisdom, and how, please, for the love of God and for the love of men, how can people find you, work with you, and connect with you?
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, it really is a sacred calling. And it's, yeah, the last words I'll say is that, like, it's taken so much to really back myself, to back my listening to that sacred calling and trust it and trust where it's taken me, even when there's story and fear and shame and all of it. And yeah, it takes that, like you said, following a sacred calling really takes that, like being willing to lay yourself on the altar and just give it up to creator, creation, spirit, like God, whatever you name it, like give yourself over to the calling and let it move you, let it take you where it wants to. So that's what I'm here doing. And yeah, if you want to connect, all of my things will be linked, I think, in the podcast notes. But I have a website, templeofsolaris.com, where people can connect with me. I'm also like accessible via email, which is templeofsolaris@gmail.com. Yeah, can check out all my social media handles linked below.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much for being here, for being present, for using your voice, for, yeah, really just sharing this gift and being seen in it and being seen in the voice. I know it's truly needed. So I would love to hear from this episode for you listening. How has this shifted your perception and what kind of narratives and stories got dissolved with this? Especially, this is kind of like a taboo, edgy topic, and I love taboo. Pluto and Scorpio, baby, I get it. And I love this like element of like really like eradicating the taboo and like tasting the textures. So I'd love to hear like what has this allowed you to say yes to? Like what deeper desire and calling and edges are you being called to like taste and dip into? And yeah, reach out, connect with myself and Sierra also if you wish. And yeah, just have a deeper connection, a more intimate connection on this. And I'll see you next time on Alchemy. Bye.